Very good morning, students, and welcome back to your English class. Today, we are going to take a new chapter from our course book. Okay, the title of the chapter is A Fishy Tale. Okay, now we will start the class. Okay, the characters in the story are Jerome, George, Montmorency, an old man named Jim Bates, a local carrier named Joe Muggles, and a solemn customer named Mr. Jones, and the landlord, a little riverside inn in Wallingford. Jerome, George, and Montmorency enter and walk into the parlor. They sit. An old man smoking a long clay pipe is seated nearby. Old man, good evening, sirs. Fine day today? Jerome, yes, and a fine day yesterday as well. George, looks like it will be a fine day tomorrow. Wonderful weather. The crops seem to be coming up nicely. Pause. Everyone looks around. Then Jerome and George look at a dusty old glass case fixed very high up above the chimney piece. Okay, the characters are Jerome, George, Montmorency. It's a dog. Okay. Now an old man, a local carrier, a solemn customer, and the landlord. Now Jerome and George reaches a riverside in Wallingford. Means a something like a lodge or a building, okay? And when they enter, when they reach the inn, they entered. Then they walked into the parlor. Parlor means old-fashioned word for a sitting room in a private house. Sitting area, a sitting room. Here, parlor means a sitting room. Okay, and Jerome and George sits there, and they saw an old man smoking a long clay pipe. It was found in ancient days. They used to smoke using the long clay pipe. Okay, he's sitting nearby them, and now they three of them talks about the weather on that day. And they were looking around, and then they saw what an old glass case was fixed on top of the chimney piece. Okay, means what is chimney piece? In chimney piece they used to fire, right? Wood or something during cold days. Okay, now they saw an old glass case above the chimney piece, and there was a fish in it. Jerome, what a monstrous fish! Is it a cod? George, no, no, that's a trout. Old man, oh, fine fellow that. Ain't he? Jerome, quite uncommon. George, how much do you think it weighs? Old man, rising and taking down his coat. 18 pounds 6 ounces. Yes, it was. It were 16 year ago, come the third or next month, that I landed him. Now they saw a fish in it. Now he's asking, is it a? Jerome is asking, is it a cod? Cod, trout, pike, and fishes. It is coming down. Okay, we are talking about these fishes. It's all types of fishes. Now they are asking. Jerome is asking, is it a cod? Now George says it is not a cod. It is a trout. And now they are asking, what is the weight of that fish? And the old man replies, it is 18 pounds 6 ounces. And here were means was. Okay, were means was. Okay, and he told that he caught it before 16 years ago. It will be 16 years the third of next month. It will be 16 years since he caught the fish. Okay, and now he explains how he caught the fish, how he got the fish. Jerome, oh, was, old man, carrying on. I caught him just below the bridge with a minnow. They told me he were in the river and I said be I would have him, and so I did. You don't see many fish that size about here now. I'm thinking, good night, gentlemen, good night. And he explains how he got the fish. He caught it from where below the bridge with a minnow. Minnow is also a type of fish. And he says good night to them and he leaves the room. Old man exits. Jerome, it really is a remarkably fine fish. The local carrier enters the inn with a pot of beer in his hand. He looks at the fish. George, looking at the carrier, good sized trout that. Carrier, ah, you may well say that, sir. Pause. He takes a pull of beer. Maybe you wasn't here, sir, when that fish was caught. George, no, we are strangers in this neighborhood. Carrier, ah, then of course you should. How should you? It was nearly 5 years ago that I caught that trout. Jerome, oh, was it you who caught that? Who caught it then? Carrier, yes, sir. I caught him just below the lock. Leastways, what was the lock? Then, one Friday afternoon, I had gone out pike fishing. Bless you, never thinking of a trout. And when I saw that whopper on the end of my line, blessed if it didn't quite take me back. Well, you see, he weighed the 26 pounds. Good night, gentlemen, good night. Now, the old man told that he caught that fish and it weighs, he caught that fish 16 years ago and it weighs 18 pounds and 6 ounces. And when he leaves, the local carrier enters the room with a pot of beer in his hand. Now, when they told about the fish, when George and Jerome told about the fish, the carrier told it is him who caught that fish. Now they were surprised. Jerome and George were surprised to hear that, and they asked how he had caught that fish. And he explains how he had caught that fish 5 years ago. And he tells that it weighed 26 pounds. And he also wishes good night to them and he leaves the room. Here exits. A solemn looking man enters. He sits by the window. Long pause. George, turning towards the man, I beg your pardon. I hope you will forgive the liberty that we, perfect strangers in the neighborhood, are taking. But my friend here and myself would be so much obliged to you if you would tell us how you caught that trout up there. Customer looks surprised. Why, who told you that it was I that caught that trout? Jerome, oh, had told us so. We just felt instinctively that it was you who had done it. Solemn customer laughing. Well, it's a remarkable thing. Most remarkable. As a matter of fact, you are quite right. I did catch it, but fancy you are guessing it like that. Dear me, it's really a most remarkable thing. Jerome, but how did you go about it? Solemn customer, took me half an hour to land him. It did. Nearly broke my rod. Weighed 34 pounds. Well, good night, gentlemen. The solemn customer exits. The landlord enters. Now, when the local carrier exits, who came a serious looking man entered the room, and he was sitting by the window. And what did Jerome and George ask him? He asked, how did he caught that fish? And he was surprised. The customer was surprised how they knew that he had caught that fish, and he asked them to. Now they guessed about it, and he tells about how he caught that fish, and He had taken half an hour even to land it, and his fishing rod was about to break because it weighed 34 pounds. And he also leaves saying good night to the gentleman. Landlord, well, sirs, fancy Jim Bates and Joe Muggles and Mr. Jones all telling you that they had caught that old fish. Well, that is good. They're the sort to give it to me, to put up in my parlor. If they had caught it, they are. Who did catch it then? George is asking. Landlord, I caught it myself years ago, when I was quite a lad. Unaccountable luck it was. Female voice calls from offstage. Landlord exists. Now, who came to the room? The landlord came to the room, and now he is asking them that did that old man, local carrier, and the serious looking customer told they had caught that fish? And George and Jerome told, yes, they had told. And the landlord says it is not them, it is the landlord that caught that fish years ago when he was a boy, and it weighed, he told he had caught that fish, and somebody calls him and he also leaves the room. George, it really is a most astonishing trout. I must get a better view of it. George climbs up on the back of a chair. The chair slips and George clutches at the trout case to save himself. The trout case falls with a crash and George and the chair land on top of it. Now they were surprised to hear that, and George thought of looking at the fish for a better view. And what he did, he took the chair and he climbed up on the chair. And what happened? The chair slipped and George clutched. He clutched at the trout case. And what happened? They all fell down. George fell down from the chair with that fish case in his hand. Jerome leaps up and runs to George. You haven't injured that fish, have you? George, I hope not. Jerome, the trout has shattered. It's in 1,000 pieces. Impossible. He looks closely at the fish. Good God, it's made of plaster of Paris. Now, when he fall off, when after slipping from the chair, Jerome is running to him. He asked, did anything happen to that fish? Or did he injure that fish? Now George is telling Hope he has not injured that fish. When Jerome looked at it, he was shocked to see the fish has broken into thousands of pieces. Now only they have understood that the fish is fake. It is made of plaster of Paris, and all the men had tricked on them. Okay, this story is adapted from Three Men in a Boat. The story was written by Jerome K. Jerome. Then let us move on to the grammar section. Is it a code? Jerome asked the old man. Jerome asked the old man if it was a cod. Next is, how much do you think it weighs? George asked the old man. George asked the old man how much he thought the fish weighed. 1A and 2A are in direct speech. Okay, it's the exact thing that is written in the chapter. 1B and 2B, the word and order changes. We also omit the question mark. Now, here the sentences 1A and 2A are exactly what is written in the textbook. Now, 1B and 2B are that we are reporting it. Okay, the same thing we are reporting in another way. So the word order changes. Do you have pastries? The child asked him. The child asked him if he had pastries. Now it's a dialogue. But when we say that, we write it in a reported speech, okay, or indirect speech. When we report yes or no questions, we use if or whether, okay. When we are reporting yes or no questions, are you tired? He asked me. Okay, this is a yes or no question, right? If you are reporting it, how we will use? We use the words if or whether in that reported speech. See this. Are you tired? Is a yes or no question, right? So, how we reported? He asked me if I was tired. Okay, next is when we report questions with WH words, we don't use do, does, or not. Does or did. Okay, usually when we uh, ask some questions with starting with WH, we use do, does, or did, right? Okay, when in reported questions, we don't use these words do, does, or did. How we write it? Where do you want to go? She asked me. This is in direct speech. And how we write it in indirect speech or reported question? She asked me where I wanted to go. Not she asked me where did I want to go. So we don't use do, does, or did in reported questions. Next is we use reporting verbs like asked and wanted to know in reported questions. Also, which words we use? We don't use do, does, or did. And which reported verbs you use? Asked and wanted to know. Where do you live? She asked. She wanted to know where I lived. This is the reported question or indirect form. Okay. Now what you have to do is you have to write these all questions in indirect speech or reported question. Okay. One is done for you. Shreya asked Raghu, where is the post office? Okay, when we are saying that, how it comes into an indirect speech? Shreya asked Raghu where the post office was. Like that, you have to do rest of the sentences. Take page number 66. The trout case falls with a crash. Crash is an onomatopoeic word. Onomatopoeic words sound very similar to the sound that the words refer to. Here are a few more examples of such words. Onomatopoeic words are words that describes a sound and actually mimics the sound of the object or action it refers to when it is spoken. Here, let us see. Creak, thud, splutter. I will tell you a simple example. Okay, what sound does a duck make? Quack, right? And what do we call that sound? Quack. So the word and the sound are similar and that are called onomatopoeic sounds. And the example is ba. How the sheeps, what make the sheep, what sound does a sheep makes? Ba, right? Ba ba. So, and what do we call that sound? Ba itself. So these are called onomatopoeic sounds. Here the sound and the words are similar or the sound mimics the sound of the object or action. Okay, now there are some onomatopoeic words given in the bracket. So in the box, now you have to fill the correct words in the blanks. Okay, you have to do it yourself. Number 67. A recipe is a list of instructions It helps us cook food by giving simple and clear instructions. Recipes need to have a heading to show what food item you are writing about, a list of ingredients, the exact amounts of the ingredients, the process of cooking explained in the correct order with clear and simple instructions. Cooking time, the time taken to cook, the number of people the dish can be served. Okay, this here there is a recipe. Recipe means it's it will give the instruction to cook something, to cook food. And what are things it will have? There will be a heading on what we are going to make, and there will be list of ingredients are given here. For example, we are going to make, or here is the recipe of fluffy cheese omelette, and the heading is what? Fluffy cheese omelette. That is what we are going to make, and the ingredients for it, and the exact amount of the ingredients is also given here. Shredded cheese 1 tablespoon, eggs 2, crushed pepper half tablespoon, and the correct list of ingredients with exact amount will be given. And next is the process of cooking, the method of cooking the food. Okay, it will be explained in the correct order and with clear and simple instructions. And the cooking time and the number of people the dish can be served to are have to be added in the recipe. Okay, now write a recipe for one of your favorite dishes in your notebook. Now you have to write a recipe list like this. First there will be heading, the next is ingredients, next is the method, and you should also add the cooking time and the number of people the dish can be served. Okay, you have to make a your own recipe or your favorite recipe, and you have to do it in your notebook. Okay,